Okay, all right.
Testing 1, 2.
Roger that.
You hear Baker?
Yeah, we can hear you, Bill.
Okay.
Frida Austin, can you hear me?
Frida, you're loud and clear.
Okay.
Janie, are you online?
There she is.
Hey, Janie, do we have a quorum with 4? We've got Ray, Alfreda, myself, and Bill Baker.
Yes.
Good, okay. All right, well, it's 7:07 p.m. and we do have a quorum with Bill Baker, Alfreda Alston, Ray Carney, and myself. So I will call to order this meeting of the Planning Board of the town of Pittsboro. I guess we certify that we have a quorum, and let's move on to our adoption of the agenda. Is everyone in concord here on the agenda, or do we all agree? We have a motion.
I move we approve it.
I'll second that. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
The agenda has been adopted unanimously. Our last meeting was back on April the 4th, and going through the minutes as I received and recalled them, everything looked to be in order to me. Does anyone want to make a motion with regard to the acceptance of the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Frida. Do I have a second?
Second.
That was
Baker,
Bill
second.
seconding, and so we have approval of the April 4th minutes. So now we move on to new business, and the first item tonight is the conditional rezoning on Park Drive, Res 2022-01 R12 to 01 CZ, and planner Janie Phelps is presenting.
No, I think you're looking at an older agenda, Eric.
Oh, am I looking at the, oh, I'm sorry. I should have set that aside. Well, no, you're going to present our text amendment to the MUPD for Northwood, NWTA 2022-01, and I'll file that. You have the
Yes.
floor, Ms. Phelps.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to leave this short and sweet because Mitch Craig with the CE group is also on here. So I'll just go over briefly what the proposal is. And also I checked with Paul Messick, the attorney, and you all will vote on it, but there's no consistency statement or anything for you all to sign or vote on. So you're pretty much just voting yes or no to approve the proposed text amendments.
Right.
So the first one up here on my screen, which I noticed this late last week, so this is a new addition, but it's pretty much a misinformation is what it is. It's dealing with the stacking requirements for Northwood. So here they have some different uses and different stacking requirements of the vehicles, but then in a table, which I didn't get a chance to bookmark it quite yet. Let me see what page that's on.
I think it's on 55, Jane.
Okay, thank
That
you.
sound right? Yeah.
Yeah.
54, 55.
So on pages 54 and 55, they have spaces required, and they also have on here if there are stacking requirements, and they vary very differently. So in this full table, which was actually pulled from the zoning ordinance, from what I understand, and it mirrors the UDO for the most part. This shows that for example, for car washes, that they need stacking for 30 vehicles or 10 for the approach lane. But yet in this table, it was 6 stacking spaces. So I showed this to Mitch, and he suggested just taking this out, and they're just going to go with the table that I just showed you later on in their document. The next one, these last two are you had in your packets. So this is dealing with the vehicular use screening area, or the VUA screening. Originally, this had just said, I believe, that a 30-foot type C buffer was required. And I believe it also mentioned this 50-foot type C. Yet earlier in the document, this is what it says, a 15-foot type C within along publicly dedicated roads within the project, and then the 30-foot and the 50-foot. So this is just correcting something that hadn't transferred over. And the last one is with the lighting, which Mitch may be able to talk more about this. This essentially is the same as saying minimum to maximum, but with a lot of the plans that they were submitting, it was really hard to meet the requirements. And especially this is with lighting. This is going to deal with the foot candles at the property line, not necessarily internal, closer to the buildings of the project. Those are always going to be a bit higher. So this is dealing with at the property lines. And it just adds some clarification. They also copied this off of Cary standards. So Cary's, pretty on their game for the most part, from what the areas around here can tell. And there was another section where they had updated it, I thought. Or was it just the minimums in the table? It must have been just the minimums.
That was it.
Okay. Okay, this is what I was thinking about. They just changed some of these terms in here. So if you have any questions for me, I can try and answer them. Otherwise, I'm not sure if Mitch has anything, or if you had any additional questions or needed any type of clarification.
There we are. Eric here. Are we still pursuing the objective to preserve our night skies? Are we, with these changes in the tables, doing anything that's going to add to more overhead light pollution, or is this going to keep it the same or reduce it?
Janie, I can answer that. The lightings, to be quick about it, no, it will not increase it. It basically just clarifies everything, because when you do the min to the max, it's kind of hard to, I can't explain it, I guess, but that's not actually a range. when you talk about lighting. It needs to be, and it needs to be a range instead of an infinite amount, is basically what that was saying. And all of these things that we're going through are part of Janie helping us out, and then ourselves helping us out clarify some of this stuff, because it wasn't written coherently to begin with, and I apologize for that. But these are all things that are, as we're going through site plans in Northwood, it's helping clean this document up.
And no, it shouldn't add to the pollution either, because also what I had done in reviewing these proposed text amendments was I had looked up, I went to Carrie's ordinance, and then I found their reference, which their reference is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the technical book that's used for lighting standards. And in that technical book, they had a maintained foot candle minimum to minimum. They didn't have the maximum in there. So that's something that actual, lighting companies will use. And that's what usually these numbers come off of. So this wasn't just, the Northwood developers saying, let's change it so we can have more light. It's changing it so it actually meets regulatory standards that are used.
That answers my question. Thank you both. Any other questions
Yes,
with regard to this text amendment? Do I hear a motion? I'll move to approve. Anyone care to jump in?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. So we're voting on the text amendment, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 And so it passes unanimously.
Thank you all. You have a good night.
Thanks, Mitch. Moving along, our second item tonight is the preliminary plat for the Del Webb community in Chatham Park. And that's sub 2022-02. And that's preliminary plat that's going to be presented by Ms. Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. All right, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen here. All right, everybody, again, thanks for your patience tonight. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Molly Boyle. I'm the planning project manager with the town of Pittsboro. And tonight I'll be presenting the staff analysis for Del Webb at Chatham Park, phases 1 through 4. And this is major subdivision preliminary plat. So I'll start by briefly going over the review and decision process for the town of Pittsboro for major subdivision preliminary plats. The applicant was required to have a pre-submittal meeting with us, which they did on February 8th. They submitted their application on the 14th. And after a few rounds of reviews and revisions, they received staff approval on or about May 4th. Then we scheduled the planning board meeting, which is of course happening tonight. And as an advisory board to the Board of Commissioners, you're going to review and make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as to whether or not they should approve or deny the project. And then the Board of Commissioners is going to take that recommendation under advisement when they review and make a decision on the preliminary plat. And the tentative date for that is August 8th. So I'll start by briefly going over the proposal. The whole Del Webb project is about 740 acres, and it includes parcels 60774, 7413, and 89720. And tonight we're focusing on Del Webb North, which is phases 1 through 4. And that's, as you would expect, at the northern portion of the whole Del Webb development. And that's approximately 362 acres of the entire Del Webb project. And in phases 1 through 4, the applicant is proposing to create 844 single-family residential lots. And 80% of those 844 lots are going to have at least one resident age 55 plus. So this is an age-restricted community. And a couple important things to note, that although this project is related to Chatham Park, it's not in the Chatham Park Plan Development District. It's not in the PDD. So you remember the master plan, the additional elements any of the small area plans, it's not going to be subject to those. What it is subject to is the approved special use permit, the zoning ordinance, and the subdivision ordinance. So I think most of you probably saw the special use permit when it came through last year. And the applicant applied for the special use permit before we adopted the Unified Development Ordinance. So they got to choose whether they wanted to be subject to the zoning and subdivision ordinances or to the new UDO. And they opted for the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. So in this case, the UDO doesn't apply to this project. I've included a vicinity map here just to kind of help remind everybody where Del Webb is in relation to the rest of the town. So this is oriented north, and up off screen here about a mile north, that's where the traffic circle is. So coming down here, this is Sanford Road, NC 87 South 15501. And this here is Moncure Pittsboro Road. And coming off here is Old Sanford Road. And a little bit south of that, about right here, this is sort of the cutoff point between Del Webb North and South. And so we're focusing on phases 1 through 4, which is about right here. And you'll see that better in a minute. I'll go ahead and minimize this, and I'll pull up the overall subdivision plan. So as I mentioned, this is that cutoff point there, and you'll see, I'll zoom in a minute, but you'll see this is actually the line of demarcation between Del Webb North and South is Chatham Parkway. And so Chatham Parkway is not going to be developed with phases 1 through 4, but it will be developed for or in conjunction with Del Webb South when that comes. And you'll see those plans at some later date. And so winding up from here, from Chatham Parkway, you have Horseberry Road, and this is the main collector for the subdivision, or at least for these first 4 phases. So that means it's going to deliver the traffic from these small internal subdivision roads, the local roads, to arterial roads, or where your high traffic volume urban roads. You'll notice that there's some streams throughout here, and those are all subject to 50-foot stream buffers. And the stream buffers are going to be protected in open space. There's also some floodplain up here, which is also protected in open space. And the whole phases 1 through 4 are surrounded with perimeter buffers and also streetscape buffers. And staff reviewed those and found those to be consistent with what was required in the special use permit. So I'll zoom in a little bit just so that you can sort of get a better look. So going from the top down, we'll go through that real quick. And I'm sure when the applicant presents, we can bring it back up on the screen if you guys have any more questions. You'll also note that there's a future amenity site denoted here. This is going to be a private, and we'll talk a little bit more about the parkland requirement in just a moment. And then you see that line of demarcation there, that's Chatham Parkway. So I'll minimize that and bring this back up. So for the technical elements in terms of water and sewer, the applicant is seeking water from the town of Pittsboro, and they intend to get sewer service from Chatham Park investors, specifically from their allocation of the Sanford line. It's also important to note that that sewer doesn't have to be available by the approval of the preliminary plat. It's going to be tied to the construction drawings, but the intention is for this to be served via Chatham Park investors and not through the town. Obviously, we don't have the capacity for that. For open space and parkland, they're required to preserve 15% in open space. They're providing over that, over 20%. And for the public parkland requirement, the applicant will pay a fee in lieu prior to the recordation of the final plat. And for access and parking, public roadways are proposed. The applicant's going to provide secondary emergency access before the 51st certificate of occupancy in the phase. And so the first 50 lots, there's only one means of emergency access before we sign off on the 50th or the 51st building permit. They'll provide a secondary emergency access. And of course, these are single family lots, so they'll have driveways and garages. And last but not least, consistency with the Pittsboro strategic plans. Staff reviewed these and found that the application was consistent with the comprehensive transportation plan, the bicycle and pedestrian plan, and the Parks and Rec master plan. I'll just review a couple things you want to note. Again, I showed you that Chatham Parkway. That's consistent. That's shown on the comprehensive transportation plan. And again, that's going to be developed with later phases in Del Webb. And the bicycle and pedestrian plan and also the Parks and Rec master plan, both show a greenway or a shared use path cutting through the subdivision. And the applicant does show that on their plans. It deviates slightly from what is in the bike and ped plan and the Parks and Rec master plan, but that's to reduce stream and wetland impacts. The applicant is proposing just to change course a little bit so they're not having to have such an impact on the water features. And with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen once I can get this there. And then if you have any questions, and also the applicant can pop on if they have anything that they want to discuss.
Thanks, Molly. The board members have any questions for the applicant? Bill, Ray, Rita?
What is our time frame for building this?
I'm Brian Inge. I'm the project engineer here on behalf of Pulte Group. The approximate time frame, the phases are planned to be built out in order 1 through 4 with an approximate final build out date of 2031.
You say 2031?
Yeah, the approximate final build out date is 2031, and approximate start of construction will be sometime next calendar year.
Pretty long build out.
Yeah, it is 9 years. Ray, any questions from you or Frida?
Well, I have a general question that may bounce off this, but I went online the other day and checked out about that Lowe's food, and I see the bidding was put on hold. We have one grocery store and we have a lot of houses and people moving into Pittsboro. How does Chatham Park or this developer plan on making sure that we have groceries and stuff in Pittsburgh?
I have another question. Is this project going to be annexed into the town?
Yes, sir. This project will be annexed into the town. As far as the grocery question, Chris Raleigh from Pulte Group is on the call. Chris, do you have any input?
Yep. Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Raleigh. I work for Pulte Home Company, which we oversee the Del Webb brand. And that's an excellent question, because we certainly want to make sure that all of our residents have access to groceries. My experience in developing neighborhoods like this is that once the grocers know that we get approvals like the ones that we're seeking tonight, that's what they need in order to justify bringing in additional grocery stores. So we're hoping that with this 844 units, that would be something that other landowners in the town, specifically the folks with Chatham Park, could use that information to go influence bringing in additional grocers.
Thanks very much. Do I hear a motion to either approve or deny the major subdivision preliminary plan for Del Webb at Chatham Park, phases 1 through 4?
I make a motion that we approve it.
Thank you, Alfreda. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ray. So we have a motion and a second to approve the major subdivision. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, Rita. So that passes unanimously. Thanks very much. We move now to the planning department's report. And Ms. Phelps and Ms. Boyle, what have you to report? You're kind of lacking hands on deck over there today, aren't you?
No, today we were all there.
You're all there, huh? All right.
Molly and I just have a couple of things we want to talk about, and obviously
Sure.
we'll open it up for you all in case you all have any questions for us about what's been going on since we didn't have a meeting for the last 2 months, I guess. I believe. I don't know. So I had sent out an email about doing some training. We were told that you all, would really like some training and everything. And so I have heard from a couple of people about some questions, and that's great. So if you still have some questions about what your role is and being a member of the planning board, that way we can help you out right away with our first training session and answer those questions for you, as well as kind of add on to them and just help you to learn a lot more. So we're thinking of maybe having training towards the end of August, possibly.
And I guess our question to the board would be, and I'm assuming that the answer is yes, but if you would prefer to have that training in person at Chatham Mills, or if you would prefer to have it virtually like this via Zoom, that would be something good for us to know, and we can make accommodations either way.
Board members, any feelings on that? Would you rather train over Zoom, or would you like to go to the planning offices at Chatham Mill?
I would
I
prefer
to do it
face to face.
face-to-face.
It's
I'm
whatever
sorry,
the whole
y'all
board
talked
decides
over
is
one
fine.
another.
Okay, whatever the board decides is fine with me.
Okay. Bill, what had you said?
I prefer to do it at Chatham Mills because
Okay. Ray, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's what I think. Bill and I talked at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
face to face is much more. I learn better that way.
Well, we're unanimous on that then, Molly. We'd like to come over to your office and do it there.
Okay, that sounds good, and we can coordinate via email in terms of setting up a specific date and time. We'll figure out what works for everyone. But yeah, we assumed as much that would be good. And like I said, we'll follow up with emails in the future. If any questions that you have that you think might be good for you to learn and also for the group, you can send those really to any of us, to Jamie, myself, or Steve. We'll keep a running list of that so that'll help guide us in making sure that we, actually have a good and fruitful training session for all of you.
Right.
That sounds good.
Very good. Ray, you asked a question about the Lowe's Foods and grocery stores generally. Are there any grocery store applications in the pipeline?
No.
No?
Not right now. But I do agree with what Pulte was saying. A lot of times that the grocers are looking for making sure that they actually have the population, or pretty much have the population in hand before they start putting in the applications. So especially after a project the size of Del Webb, I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing those come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a point on that, Eric.
Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
My wife was shopping and talking to a person, and they were at the Food Line, because that's the only store we basically have. And they say they order 100 cases, they only get 15. And that's under current conditions.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, I don't know. But if all these people, I drive through the vineyard maybe once every other week just to go through. I've never seen so many houses sold in my whole given life.
Yeah.
So we have a ton of people coming into Pittsboro. We don't have to wait for another development to start. There's a ton of people coming into Pittsboro.
Right.
And yeah, I just have a concern that you're going to have food shortages.
Yeah, no, you're right. Food Line didn't have any blueberries today. So we'll have to circle back tomorrow.
Well, currently the town is also still at capacity, and Robbie, if he's listening on here, maybe he's taking some notes for Chatham Park then.
Go recruit some more grocers.
The other thing too is the one of the most recent Board of Commissioner meetings that I was at, they had discussed potentially moving up their meeting time. So we wanted to also present that to you all in case you wanted to try and meet earlier than 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. What are they proposing?
I don't know.
For a start time, like 6 p.m. or something?
Yeah, I don't think they fully decided yet, but they were talking about starting at 6. I think what's up for debate is whether they're going to move it there consistently or just on evenings when they have a heavy agenda. But still, they've been talking about that.
Understood. I think we're fine at 7. I mean, to the point that Molly implied, our agendas typically are a fraction of what the board has to consider. And I think 7 o'clock is convenient for me if it is for the rest of the board members.
I have a question. When are we gonna start meeting in person and get away from this virtual mess?
Any ideas? Janie or Molly?
I guess that's for you all to decide.
I know we were moving towards that, and then just with the staff changes, that got kind of sidelined.
Yeah.
But we can start moving back towards that now, if that's what the board would prefer.
Well, why don't we explore that then for our next meeting and see if we can get together at the town hall, and if that's consistent with what the town board of commissioners would want.
Okay.
One
sure.
thing would make it easy. One thing would make it easier, excuse me,
Mhm.
if the town would try to work with some of the communication people to get us some decent internet.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be so bad to have these meetings, but they keep approving more developments. And you know where the spectrum and all them gonna go, they're gonna go to developments. They ain't
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
go to local people.
No, you're right.
And
You're
I think
right.
there ought to be some pressure put somewhere that before these people are allowed to nitpick whatever they want, or they get their best customers, that they treat the people that lived here all along
Yes.
to give us some decent service.
Well, I had a phone call and was confirmed in an email that T-Mobile is offering 5G internet for a lot of the areas in Pittsboro. I know I can get it at my house on Springdale. I don't know about the rest of your home addresses, but it's $50 a month, unlimited. And that's a much more attractive price than Spectrum. And so I've signed up to give it a try. I'll give you a report after I've test driven it for a bit.
I can't even get Verizon.
Can't you?
Verizon is common now. You can't,
Yeah.
you have to be staying in a certain place in your house to even get an email.
Jeez.
It's gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, that's not good. Any other commentary from the board that you would like to have included in tonight's meeting or minutes? Well, with that silence, I'll invite a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion that we're adjourned.
Thank you, Frida.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Ray. All in favor? Aye. Good night,
Aye.
everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Molly and Janie.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.